I made a short video about this, and I want to say a little bit more about this tweet from Major General Patrick Cleburne. And he is talking about how the military is now renaming absolutely everything that has the name of a Confederate war hero. And he says Bragg and Hood are both unfairly maligned. They were honorable men and shouldn't be viewed the way they are. And so we have this troll, and I need to look him up, see what other kind of garbage he posts. This troll posts, we should dig up their graves and blank in their mouths. So, past few years I've started to study the Civil War. I started when they started calling for the statues to be torn down. And one thing I've learned is these men that have the statues built of them, they did more than just fight in the war. A lot of them were very successful businessmen who helped build the cities and states that they live in. And that's why they have statues. And I know that's true for, I think it's Fort Rucker in Alabama they just renamed. And you can read about I'm not sure of his rank, about Rucker and how his service in the Confederate Army. And also what he did after the Civil War. He did a lot of great things, started a lot of businesses. But because the Northeast, the far left Northeasterners now run our government, they hate the South, and they have the far leftist view of the Confederacy. But I need to get to my point, and that is all of these men that they made statues of, they just weren't known for what they did during the war. I mean, these were accomplished men. They made a difference outside of their service to the Confederacy. And that's why they have statues. And what we are seeing now is eradication of American history. And it's done by people who just, honestly, they hate America. They really hate America. They have a goal for this country, and that is to remake it. They don't like our Christian heritage, and they hate our Christian heritage. And this garbage has been going on for quite a few decades, but it's really accelerated since Obama was president. But, look up, read up on Robert E. Lee. He's the most controversial. After the war, Robert E. Lee was admired by both people in the North and the South. So it's not like it was just Southerners putting up statues. People up North admired Robert E. Lee. And the leftist American haters just can't wrap their brains around that. FDR dedicated a statue to Robert E. Lee. President Eisenhower hung Robert E. Lee's portrait in the Oval Office. Winston Churchill said Robert E. Lee was the greatest American to ever live. But, we have these uneducated savages protesting Robert E. Lee statues. They've never read one book on Robert E. Lee. They don't know anything about the Civil War. And if you ask them about Robert E. Lee, they will say he's a racist or whatever. Just say a lot of garbage, and they don't know anything. And this, I want you to understand this is just beyond the people that were involved in the Civil War. This is for, we're seeing this hatred for Americans such as George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, and is pretty much part of the anti-white movement that is popular with the left right now. this garbage about systemic racism and white supremacy and all this other trash. Um, it's just all part of tearing down America. I don't know what they plan to replace it with, just some type of Marxist, multicultural garbage that will fail. But, read your American history. America is a great nation. We have made mistakes, especially in the Middle East. Boy, have we made mistakes in the Middle East. But we've tried to do good. Even when we screw up, we've tried to do good. And just because we now and then we get some corrupt leaders, there's been a lot of the great Americans who have laid down their lives for what they thought was right. And I think the Iraq War is a great example of that. Basically that was a war we fought for Saudi Arabia. And it was just a horrible war. But American men laid down their lives because they thought what they were doing was right. And, when we stop honoring the greatness of American men of character, that's the end of this nation. And everything that the left is trying to do is designed to bring down this country. And I think that's one of the reasons we have this mass illegal immigration, and not to insult the illegal immigrants, but a simple fact is they don't have ties to the history of this nation. My ancestors have fought in literally every war this country's been involved in. And from the Revolutionary War, I've had cousins that fought in the Gulf War, just every war this country's been in. And but these people coming in from Venezuela and Cuba and China, they have no ties to our heritage. They don't have relatives who fought and died defending American homes. And that's all part of the design. If I remember years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, I saw a news article about how they were renaming some Texas high school because their mascot referenced something to do with the Confederate Army. They might have been called the Rebels or something like that. I don't know, but anyway, I thought it'd be interesting to see who the students are at this school, because you might think, well, they're African American students, because we see that here in Alabama. They're renaming things after other people because the schools that were once white schools are now African American schools, and they don't want Confederate soldiers. Anyway, this Texas high school, it didn't have any black students, but it had very few white students. They were all Hispanic. And if let's say you're a new immigrant, you're a Hispanic immigrant to this country, and you're going to that high school, and your leftist principal, white leftist principal, decides that he doesn't want any type of reference to the Confederacy. He believes that the Confederate Army is evil and all this other kind of garbage. So he's going to push for a change. Do you think that any of these Hispanic students are going to fight it? No, they don't have any ties to America's past. So they're not going to fight it at all. And so that's part of what's going on now. People, when you bring in people without a connection to our past, so that when you want to destroy our memorials to people of the past, these new immigrants, they won't care. You know, they know nothing about it. So, I guess, you know, if there's anything to take away from this, is speak up, be bold, don't be shy in defending your heritage, whether you had ancestors fought on the Union side or the Confederate side, or fought for Texas freedom, fought Mexico for Texas freedom. Don't be afraid to stand up and speak the truth. And be proud of your heritage, because they are trying to destroy it. And if you want to know specifically where it's coming from, in my opinion, it's coming from New York City, the New York City media. And California, the Hollywood is just a tool of the billionaires in New York City who have an agenda. They're globalists. They're not Christians, and they want to see this country taken down. Or I shouldn't say taken down. They want to see it change. They have their own worldview, and they want a nation without Christianity. They have some idea of some Marxist utopia where, you know, well, I don't know. Don't want to get into all that. But study your history. Read some books on the Civil War that come from all sides. There's books that support the South, and there's tons of stuff that don't support the South because it comes from California and New York City. Yeah, if you want to read or watch a movie that is not pro-South, you know, watch some Ken Burns stuff. If you want to watch a movie that is pro-South, from what I understand, is Gods and Generals. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard that. You know, let your congressman know, even if you're in the North, let your congressman know that you are not in favor of renaming these forts and bases and tearing down statues. Because, you know, what they're doing to the South, they will do to everyone else. They're already tearing down statues of Abraham Lincoln. So, you know, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Thank you.